Hey, thanks for coming back. Today we're going to be working on this giant piece. I originally started doing a digital sketch, and you can see the digital sketch is quite sparse, and I transferred it over to watercolor paper with my light pad. And I'm going in and inking over the pencil lines. I did the pencil lines, I went ahead and filled out the shelves and added a lot more detail than I did in the original digital sketch, which I'm so happy that I did. It definitely needed to happen. A lot of the time I end up doing all of my final detail for when I do my pencil lines, just because, to be honest, I don't really like sketching digitally. I like it because I have the opportunity to really warp things and move things around and get the general concept out, but as far as detail goes, it's not really where I thrive. So I did all of my detail once I had it on the watercolor paper, and I spent a lot of time looking at pictures of junk shops and steampunk letter, and I kind of made stuff up as I went and added a lot of things that I don't really know what they are, of course. We can pretend though that I know what everything is. It took quite a bit of time, honestly, to come up with all of the ideas. This whole piece took me probably over a period of 2 weeks to finish, just because I kept putting it off to work on other things, and all of the holiday celebrations going on kind of detracted me from that. I also was out of masking fluid when I started this painting, and that was definitely something that I knew that I wanted when I was going forward. So there's a gap between when I first started the first round and then the second round when I finally got my masking fluid. And actually I got my new light in between the process too, so my lighting gets a little bit better, which is great. And here you can see that I'm fixing up my hands. I knew that I wanted to redo them. They were just a really quick sketch. A lot of the time I'll end up inking everything that I know I like, and then erasing my pencil lines and then going back and fixing what I know I don't like. I do that quite often, especially when it comes to faces and hands. Sometimes you can just tell that there's something a little bit off about it, but you're not exactly sure, and you want to see the rest of the line art before going in and finalizing things. I knew going in I wanted to focus on doing a lot more depth and shadows. You can see that I go in with my darks early on just because I know that I want that area to be pretty dark. A lot of the time the black watercolor paint dries much lighter than you originally put it on, but I wanted to just finalize that whole area was going to be in shadow. My light source was going to be the lamp that's on the desk. I originally was thinking I would do both the light above her head and the light on the desk. Maybe the light above her head is broken. This picture was a commission, actually. So the character is Laynne, and she is a steampunk engineer. So I knew I wanted to have her working in her workshop, and I had this image in my head early on that I wanted her to have this big full shelf behind her with just all of her half-finished projects. She's supposed to be pretty poor, so everything that she has, she has made from other people's garbage. And you can see with the clock on the wall, I kind of wanted it to look like it was maybe pieces from two different clocks that she had put together to make one working clock, and that's just kind of the story of her life. Is she takes other people's trash and turns it into things. The color palette for this, I already knew I wanted it to be very warm and earthy. I wanted a lot of browns and blacks. I had looked at quite a few steampunk interior paintings, or just interior paintings with dim lighting, to kind of get the idea for what I wanted it to look like. And I didn't even do a color comp because I knew almost exactly what I wanted it to look like from the get-go, with a pretty neutral background, and then having her pop off just a little bit more from the lighting. As I move forward, you can see that I'm just adding quite a bit of depth as much as I can, building up that color. And depth is definitely something that I know I need to work on. That's just something that takes practice and confidence with watercolor. And watercolor I've only really been using for less than a year. And in this piece I actually do use quite a bit of Copic marker. Copic marker is definitely my safe zone. I feel more comfortable working in shadows with the Copic marker. I feel like it's pretty easy to control for me, of course, because I've practiced with it a lot more. That's definitely something that I want to phase out of my art. It's a waste of ink, to be honest. Using Copic marker on watercolor paper is not exactly ideal, but I like the effect. I like the way that this piece looks once I've added in all of those marker details. And we're getting to the point in the video where I stop and switch over to my new light. I think you can see the lighting is much better now. And I will go in with my new masking fluid here pretty soon, which I was so excited about. I originally tried to use the dregs of my Misket masking fluid, and it left this awful orange stain and almost stuck to the paper, kind of fuzzing up her skin a little bit, which made me so annoyed. It really did mess with her skin. I'm happy to say though, with this particular character, it was okay if she had dirt on her skin because she is an engineer and she is probably not somebody who bathes or self-cares that often because she's so sucked into her working life. So it fit in character. I was okay with it with this, but if I had been doing something that I knew I wanted her skin to be totally clean and perfect, I would have been way more unhappy about that. I hope you all had an amazing holiday. I'm so glad that the holidays are over. I love New Year's, but Christmas, winter holidays, etc. have never been my favorite. In the Pacific Northwest, it gets pretty cold. Not as cold, obviously, as more Central America, but it gets chilly, and I've never loved that. So I just peeled off the masking fluid. I wanted to just keep certain areas a little bit lighter when I did that big wash of color, and going in with those Copic markers to really just pop everything out and darken the shadows. And this is definitely a piece that grew a lot as I progressed and built up the color. It's a good exercise in how things will change, especially because I started this painting probably 2 weeks before I finished it. I felt like because I'm at a level in my art that I feel like I'm progressing so much every piece that I do, I was almost a little bit unhappy with certain parts, but I did end up kind of tweaking them and fixing them, and I was quite happy with the outcome. I ended up editing it a little bit digitally to make that lighting just a little bit more intense, and digitally editing it I think isn't exactly ideal, but it does help me know what I can improve on if I were to do something like this again. So if I were to do this again, I know I would have gone a little bit darker with my shadows and a little bit lighter and more warm with that table light. I'm adding in quite a bit of details to this background with the pen and my white gel pen and making things pop up a little bit more. I was so happy when I got to peel off the tape on the sides. I feel like it just made everything look so much more polished and finished. That's one of my favorite parts when I'm working on a new painting. I ended up going over her hair with a little bit of colored pencil, and of course, because this painting had so many metallic objects in it, I had to bust out my glitter palette. But I was once again thrilled with the outcome of this painting, and the person who commissioned it loved it, and I hope you enjoyed watching. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon.